it's such an opportunity for an energetic, clean slate and a rebalancing of the hormones, the emotions, the thoughts, the neurology. Because between now and dead, it doesn't have to be what it was, right?
I'm Ann Marie McQueen, journalist and proud 50-ish woman, and we are here looking for the true truth in perimenopause, menopause, midlife, and beyond.
Opening our minds to other possibilities is not always easy.
Hotflash Inc.
You're all woman to me. All right, Ann Marie.
Welcome to the Hotflash Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Ann Marie McQueen, founder of Hotflash Inc. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Riana Malia, a transformation coach with more than 20 years of experience helping ambitious women break free from the emotional blocks and old patterns holding them back. Riana is trained in a bunch of things: evolved neurolinguistic programming, quantum time release, and advanced trauma-aware coaching. And she brings all of that to her powerful Clear to Create method. Her approach blends neuroscience and deep compassion to help women feel confident, clear, and fully in charge of their lives. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but number one, we're going to focus on how to quit people pleasing and start speaking up, because this has been such a problem for so many women, particularly like Gen X and millennial. We were taught to be good girls. And then I'm going to get into quantum time release because I'm really interested in that. I hope you enjoy it. Gonna dive in. Okay. Riana, am I saying?
Yes.
I am so interested in what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to focus on the nice girl thing, and then we're going to do a little bit of quantum stuff at the end. And maybe I'll come back and talk to you about that later. But so many of us were raised to be the nice girl. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's actually so timely to share with you something that happened like last week. First of all, 90% of who we are today is what we picked up between 0 and 7. So a lot of that, some of it we can remember and pinpoint, right? You can remember a moment, maybe something happened when you were 6, and I can tell you what happened, and you did something that was embarrassing and you just that meant something, right? But a lot of it is subconscious. And so there's so many variables and so many elements here, but I think it's important just to start for a minute, just talking about the difference between the conscious and the unconscious and how that plays into this. So if we think about our body, everything from the neck up is our conscious mind. So it is our critical faculties. It's everything we know. It's what makes us successful. And it's our goal setter. And we use it all day. And it's 10%, which means everything from the neck down, the other 90%, is our unconscious mind. So if our conscious is our goal setter, our unconscious is the goal getter, right? It's the operating system. But here's the secret, the most important part. It's the literal library of everything you've ever experienced in your entire life. Everything that's ever been said to you, done to you, all the experiences are stored in our body at a cellular level. So we think of memory as being in the brain, and of course it lives in the circuitry, but it really does live at a cellular level, which we know to be true after all of these years. We see it in generations of people. Stuff gets passed down in DNAs and cycles and patterns that repeat. We see it in animals. We see it with people that get an organ transplant, right? They couldn't stand pickles their entire life, and all of a sudden now they crave pickles every day, and they just find that person whose heart they got, that was their favorite food. So memory, being cellular, stays with us, and it becomes kind of the blueprint of who we are. And all of those elements and those things that happen between 0 and 7 that really get anchored in, they all have beliefs and values and thoughts and behaviors that are attached to them, which then kind of lays out how we show up in relationship, how we show up in our communication, the things that we say to ourselves, about ourselves, all of those pieces. And so sometimes it's not necessarily something that you have conscious memory of, but it's so important to be able to release that so that you can actually have the rich, fulfilling relationships, connections, partnerships in our lives.
So we have all this stuff in our bodies and it's driving us and we don't always understand why. How do you release it?
Yeah. So the beautiful thing, so I created a method called the Clear to Create method. And the reason that I did, as most of us, and when we find our life's work, there's always a story, right? And I grew up with my single mom. My dad wasn't really around very much. kind of went off to college. She said, hey, I'm going to help. And then I got there and they called 2 months in, they called the dorm and said, yeah, your bill was never paid. So, what are you going to do? So I went and got 3 jobs and rented a 5-bedroom house and filled the other rooms and tapped into that resourcefulness of when we're faced with something that we were not really sure how we're going to handle it. And so there's story there around not being worthy and not being enough and not being important enough. As a child, I moved to a new area and remember so vividly the moment. I think it was like 6th grade. Isn't that crazy? I'm 49. I can remember that feeling of being the only one left out, not invited to the popular girls' house after school. And then having that sense of just being so lonely and sad and kind of disconnected and like, how, am I too much? Am I not enough? All of those things that we process. So you take all of that and you throw it together, and then we become adults and we look at these patterns in life. And the truth is that even though my motto, if you will, my tagline has always been your very best life, you can't go from being tethered by past pain and betrayal and trauma and loss and all the things that we experience as humans to just living your very best life, especially if there's been a betrayal or a transition or a divorce or a failed business or a friendship that blew up that, just broke your heart. You actually have to clear before you can create. And so that's where it all begins, right? So we have to clear the story to create the life. So many people say, I don't want to continue this. I don't want to keep finding myself in these same positions. Well, if you want a different story, you have to stop telling the old one.
Okay.
And we have to clear the cycles to create the confidence. When we've been people pleasing and we've been trying to fit in and smush in and make it work for everybody else, we lose trust in ourselves, right? I don't know, is this a red flag? Is this a yellow flag? Is this person how do I know? I thought I knew, and look what happened. And we have to clear the patterns to create the partnerships. So we want these fulfilling, incredible relationships romantically, in our friends and our family dynamics, in our professional life. But when we bring all these old patterns and these old behaviors and neurology and strategy and ways of being, we can't have those genuine, authentic partnerships. And how do we clear it? There's a lot of amazing ways. One of my favorites is called quantum time release, which is a beautiful, painless, peaceful way to actually release the decades, however many years you are on this planet, of that built up negative charge, of those negative emotions of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, and all those limiting beliefs and limiting decisions that come from being left out as the little girl, having a parent that was absent, not feeling safe, not feeling, secure in what's going on. And we get to do that in a way without going back into any of the trauma that caused the pain in the first place. So we're not reinstalling that neurology and that story. And so we have an opportunity to actually let go, actually make it different without it taking years, just staying in that place of continuing to tell the same story over and over and over again.
Yeah, because a lot of times you think therapy and you have to go back over the event, but what you're saying, and it's true, there's so many things we probably don't even remember. I know sometimes when I get upset, I'm like, I know there's something deeper here, but I can't really connect it. Obviously, when they say it's like hysterical, it's historical. Is it like a somatic release? Is it like a breath work? Is it like a body movement? Is it a thought process?
You know the feeling when you tried all your health trends, but you're still tired, foggy, or just not yourself? It's not your fault. True health starts deeper at the cellular level. Enter the first ever longevity gummies powered by Mitopure. They're the only clinically proven urothalin A gummies designed to recharge your cells, boost energy, and help you feel strong and vibrant from the inside out. They taste great. I've tried them. They're vegan and clean. And Mitopure's own testing shows they can add up to 12% more muscle strength in just 16 weeks. It's like giving your body a daily cellular tune-up. If you want to feel energized now and as you age, click the link to timeline.com in the show notes and use my code HOTFLASH for 20% off your first order. That's timeline.com and code HOTFLASH.
I'm so glad you brought up thoughts. So every day, on average, we think between 65,000 and 85,000 thoughts, which is wild. And 90% of those thoughts are recycled, right? They're the same thoughts that we thought yesterday and the day before, the week before, and the month before, and for sure in the middle of the night when you're kind of running through those ruminating scenarios of the what ifs. The problem is 75% of those thoughts are negative. And I get a lot of pushback on that because the women that I work with are emotionally intelligent, ambitious, smart women. And they're like, I think I got the mindset thing pretty good. Like I'm clear, like I'm not going to put myself in these boxes anymore. I'm not going to put myself in these situations anymore. But here's the thing, the universe, just like the unconscious mind, it doesn't hear that qualifying don't. It only knows what you're really focused on. And most of the time people are focused on what they don't want instead of what they do. So that's all that continues to show up in friendship, in relationship, in money, in health, in all of the ways. So we got to flip that focus, which we do in a very specific way. That quantum time release is a super powerful multidimensional technique, right? So there's alchemical forgiveness, it's timeline work. There's also the alignment activation where I teach you how to really clear all of that kind of the untruth, all of that energy, so that you can fully tap into rewiring the truth of who you are in that human experience and be able to like really have all cylinders firing. So it's a combination of a lot of different things, but also it's the rewiring, right? So much of this work really focuses on clarity and awareness, which is great. It's the foundation for any kind of growth or transformation. But the problem is if you don't give you the knowledge to go with, or the skills to go with the knowledge, you just end up in that maddening loop because you have to replace the neurology and the behavior. It's why people say, I've been in therapy for years, and then life comes at you because it always will. And instead of staying at that progress point of, the things that you, the ahas and all of that stuff in therapy, it's like, bam, you go right back to those old ways of being and those old behaviors, and there's old making yourself small and putting everybody else first. And unless you actually replace that, the mind can't fill in the blanks. So of course we go back to what we know. It's also why people, find themselves in the same situations over and over, or circumstances, or end up saying, why do I always do this? Why do I always attract people that take advantage of me? Or why do I feel like I have to say yes to everybody else except for me? And it's because the biggest job of the unconscious mind outside of keeping us safe is to get resolution. And it'll continue to play out scenarios. And all transformation happens inside growth. It happens inside of human relationship because we need the mirror reflected back to us, right? So when we see these patterns and we see these relationships that continue to end up in the same way, it's the unconscious mind trying so hard to get a critical core need met that has not been met. So if you grew up in a chaotic household as a child, that will continue to play out, and you will seek those environments and those relationships because you know how to survive them. And the unconscious mind will keep playing that out until you actually heal it, solve it, fix it, move on, whatever you want to call it. But it's super powerful, and it's the thing that most people don't ever get to. So they spend a lifetime wondering what's wrong with them when it's not your fault.
What's alchemical forgiveness?
So when we talk about forgiveness, it's a big trigger. A lot of people will say, I'm not going to forgive them. They destroyed my life. They hurt me so deeply, et cetera, et cetera. And forgiveness isn't about them. True forgiveness, whether the person is alive or dead or across the world, it really isn't about them. When I moved my daughter, my mother, 2 horses and 3 cats across the country from Minnesota to California to take over a family business from my father, and every part of me said, this is not right. And the people closest in my life said, please don't go. Like, you can't trust him. Like, look at the evidence. But I wanted so desperately to heal that wound. And I had gone through a very tumultuous divorce. And, I was raising my baby girl, and I was tired. And I was like, it felt like a breath. So I went against everything that my body was screaming at me. And these weren't even just red flags. These were like New York Times billboards flashing in all their glory. And I ignored them because nope, it's going to be great. So I got to California, and not only was the family business not viable, but I found myself in a position where I was in handcuffs surrounded by federal agents. And there was stuff going on that was, let's just say, not legal, but I obviously was not aware of. And so it put my life, my daughter's life, my mother's life in danger. And then I had to make a choice because I promised Maddie, she was 9, that I was only going to disrupt her life once. And so I could either take us back to Minnesota, which would have been totally fine, or I could keep my promise. So I tapped into that resourcefulness, a few $100,000 in credit card debt later, keeping us afloat, taking care of her, taking care of my mom. But in that process, dealing with such a betrayal, again, from a father, like how do you, how do you do that to not only your child, but forget about me, how about your grandchild? And went back to therapy, wrote the letters, did all the things, and then realized all that did was kept me in that place of anger and sadness. Like I was either so devastated and sad and broken, or I was so full of rage that I couldn't be present. It kept me from my joy. And somebody introduced me to some of this work that then became the basis for my life's work. And in a matter of weeks, there were parts of me that I didn't recognize in all the best way. And it wasn't because I just was staying in the drama of, can you believe this? And I can't believe this happened. And then this happened. And this person showed up in the house. It was actually being able to experience forgiveness in a way that meant that I didn't carry around the anger and the sadness anymore. I didn't spend my days consumed by all of that emotion and the wondering and the wishing that it was different, right? That's how humans suffer. We suffer when we are so attached to a reality that isn't real. And I fully forgave my father, but that doesn't mean he gets access or a seat at the table. It doesn't mean that he is off the hook for anything, or that it's justified, or that it's okay. He's not in any part of my life, but I don't think about it and obsess about it. And I don't carry that anymore. That's not mine to carry. And when you can experience that kind of forgiveness and we do some of that work inside of quantum time release, where we get to let it go. You got to forgive self. There's always 3 people. You got to forgive the people that hurt you, the people that didn't show up and stop it if they could, or after the fact, and yourself. And I always find that last one is the hardest, right? The forgiveness of self seems to be the most emotional for a lot of people. But being able to fully forgive and let go of that and see it from a different perspective, but also understanding that it doesn't justify or make okay any of that. It's just you're not carrying the poison anymore. And now you get to be present. You get to have the joy and the abundance and the delight and the love and all the things that are meant for you in this world, not tethered to all of the pain and emotion that's attached to the person that hurt you.
Did you know I also have a Substack? That's just a fancy way of saying I have a newsletter. But listen, it's not like every other newsletter. I am the only journalist in the world who's made menopause my beat. And each week I share research, news, products, tips, and tricks from the world of menopause and midlife. Sometimes I even write an essay. Hotflash Inc. on Substack is where I pull together everything that's here and in the menosphere, and I break it down just for you, so that we can try and make sense of it all and figure out what to do together in real time. Join more than 5,000 women practitioners, CEOs, and more, and become a subscriber today. You can get my podcast as well as special video and audio drops you can't get anywhere else. Sign up today at hotflashinc.substack. You're 49. I talk to a lot of menopausal women. You hear a lot of, I feel like this is such a magical transition because I personally believe like my perimenopause experience was so much worse because of all this stuff that I brought that I didn't even know about and wasn't even aware about. And so I started, the hormones sort of like recede, but I think they reveal physical problems, but also emotional stuff. Have you seen this? Do you see this happening in midlife with people, and how does it play out?
Absolutely. Speaking of, as I was cursing my body for having to I got up and changed my jammies twice last night because I was come on.
Yeah.
So fun. But, it's interesting. I have a lot of in it, and a lot of it's come from incredible opportunities and conversations just like this, just like with you, where there's people in the world that specialize with working with perimenopausal and menopausal women. And we see the physical stuff, right? The weight gain, the different things. And a lot of times they will send their clients to me to do this release on all the energetic and emotional stuff. And then it's so amazing. Then they're actually able to release the physical weight. And we see it over and over and over again. And I love how you called it like a magical transition, because like it's such an opportunity. It's such an opportunity for an energetic clean slate and a rebalancing of the hormones, the emotions, the thoughts, the neurology. Because between now and dead, it doesn't have to be what it was, right? We get to choose, and to have kind of this like clean slate to build from and really tap in and figure out who are you now, and fall in love with that version and that person, and really get to clear all this stuff that's been keeping us stuck and keeping us in these patterns so that we can create this next part of our life. But then the third phase of that protocol is really claiming it, where, stepping into her and radiating from it and leading from it and loving from it, and separating your true self from all the noise and all the conditioning and all the stuff and all the story, and being able to be in this place of really confidently holding boundaries and expertly communicating your needs and deepening the richness in all of those relationships, but also being able to just celebrate you and shine and just magnetize with grace. And it is such a magical time of our lives, which is so different than the generations before us.
Okay, so when it comes to stopping people pleasing,
Yeah.
I do also feel like menopause just like forces this on you, and you see a lot of women talking about it. Like, I just can't take things anymore. I have to speak up. But I have found in my own life, and maybe I'm a little bit like, I don't know, a magician with a new wand, and they don't really know what to do with it, and I'm not wielding it properly. But I have noticed it causes problems because you're changing the game of the relationships and dynamics that you're having. And I think people aren't used to it, and they kind of have to get to know you again. And then also, I'm working in a workplace, and I'm just much more straight up, and that's caused problems there too. And so I just kind of wonder what your advice is for that, because I'm just feeling like, well, I just spoke up for myself, but I'm getting sort of penalized for it, right? I don't know. What do
For
you
sure. And exactly to your point, you're stepping into a new identity. And it's like when people change careers. And I think what's coming to mind for me is real estate, because a lot of people will have a career and then they'll maybe, have always had a desire or a passion for real estate. And so they'll go do real estate. And if you don't reintroduce yourself to the world as that, like, stepping into that identity as a realtor or what a real estate expert, everybody always still thinks of you as the art broker or whatever you were. It's kind of the same thing. So I actually have had quite a lot of real estate professionals that I have worked with to help them through these processes and build their business. But it's so interesting because there's also this fear of, and most often with women, it's much more prevalent with women, where they'll say, well, I don't know, it just feels weird. Like, all these people, I'm like, yeah, but if all these people are going to be having their neighbor sell their house, all these people are going to have their second cousin's dog walker who got a real estate license, buy them a house, because they're talking about it all the time. So it's up to us to own it and claim it and really embody that and align the energy of who we are now, who we're becoming. And also, in that owning it and stepping into it and embodying it, you need to talk like her and walk like her and speak from that place. And it's not your responsibility. And this is like such a big, like, okay, people pleasing. I stood up for myself and I had clarity and I spoke my truth in a way that was articulate and clear. And it upset someone else. And now I have to fix it and I have to take care of them.
Yeah.
We actually don't. We actually don't. If we're speaking from a place of integrity and kindness and, there's not manipulation or agenda, there's nothing to take care of. It's not ours. That's theirs. That's their stuff.
Okay.
And again, I think the other thing is really it's consistency. You can't just try on being a realtor for a couple of days and then be like, oh, just kidding. And then expect somebody to, call you and say, hey, will you list my house? So it's like putting on that cape from some childhood story, right? You put on the cape and you're this superhero. You got to keep the cape on. You got to just own her as, yep, you've known me as a keep quiet, don't make waves, never stand up for myself, make sure everybody else is happy and taken care of for 20 years. But guess what? That's not who I am anymore.
Yeah.
And then continue to show up for you in that way, unapologetically, with love and kindness, of course. You're not going to be, crazy bitch, but you're going to be true to you. And when you are connected back into the truth of who you are, and that's where you live from, everything else becomes much easier. Even though it seems like that would be so contradictory because people are going to have their reactions, let them have their reactions. They're not yours to fix or worry about. As long as you're good with you and you're coming from a place of generosity of spirit and kindness and integrity, the rest is just noise. It's just noise.
I like it a lot. How about truth? My best friend, I spoke to her this week and she went to a therapist and she doesn't like the therapist. And she said, I'm just going to tell her I'm busy. And I said, why don't you tell her it's not a good match? Just try, because these little things we say that aren't true, I feel like they make us weighted down. Is there truth in that?
So can I share a story of something that happened really dramatic? Last week? I don't know, last week or the week before. It was a big deal for me. I flew to a town called Kelowna in British Columbia, Canada, to go do 3 days of speaking. And really, for me, stepping into that part of my world as a speaker and an author and a reinvention strategist for ambitious women who are ready to actually claim and own the life and love that's meant for them. And I'm a planner and I love lists, and I had lists all over the walls, and I had been planning okay, I'm doing 2 keynotes and I have 2 interviews and all of these things. It's gonna be amazing. 2 different venues, 2 different stages. And I had ordered outfits that looked fabulous, and I didn't want to go to Nordstrom and pay $1,500 per dress. So I was like, okay, so I found a gorgeous gown that was pretty bougie and this fabulous fuchsia pink satin bottom and this beautiful white long sleeve top and this gorgeous white dress that kind of looked like a suit, but it has a little bit of sexiness to it, and some other thing that was like a jumpsuit, ivory, looked beautiful. So it arrived, and it didn't come from the US. I thought it was coming from Europe. I think it really came from China, and the quality was kind of crappy. And you get it and you go, okay, I can make this work, right? I mean, I'm not going to the Oscars. I'm going to be it's 5 outfits. It's 5 different things. I can make this work. So I get there. I've been preparing for this for a long time in my life. And I step on stage for my first keynote. And my speaking coach was also there. So part of this process is creating that speaker reel for the next level of speaking, right? And she stopped me in the middle of my talk. And she's like, I'm so torn and conflicted because most of the time people can't recover. You stop them in the middle of the flow like this, but I just know you're going to be upset. So anyway, I walked off the stage. We went to the green room. She's like, there's something about this dress that on the left side, it looks like you have a third boob. There's the way that it's sewn. It's so beautiful, except it's this weird, and you're going to hate it. So I literally took off the top of the dress and took a scissors and cut out the in parts of the inside of the lining of the dress. And I took a deep breath and I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And I went back on stage and I delivered my keynote. Now, I went back to the hotel, had a glass of wine, like had story time, talked about it. Like, sometimes you just got to roll with it. And I'm grateful for her that she listened to her intuition and stopped me. Now, the next day, we were on the big stage, and that gown I was talking about that I was so excited for, I put it on, and it kind of had that same feeling. So I cut it apart, and I cut out the interior part, and I put it back on. And then it was worse, because then it was like this material was like bunchy underneath. So I cut away the whole lining.
Oh,
And then I cut a bra to try to see if and then I was taping things down and smushing it together. And I put it back on, and I just had tears, and I took it off and I threw it in the garbage. And rather than going into my interview, I walked back to my hotel. I grabbed this gorgeous, elegant, beautiful, strapless linen suit that was still me. It's timeless. It's not like a stuffy corporate feeling, but it was something that I didn't even plan on bringing. I bought it the last second right before I got on the plane, actually. And I put it on, and I went back and delivered my keynote. But it was such a transformational moment for me, because in life, how many times are we smushing ourselves in something that's shitty quality and taping things down to make it better for somebody else, and pushing us in like this little thing, and cutting dresses apart, and like pulling out the stuff to try to make it work, when really, if we just tapped into like valuing ourselves and loving who we are, and choosing something that honors us, that's quality and timeless, and actually is a reflection of who we really are, rather than smushing into these cheap things and cutting them apart and throwing away all the money anyway. It was such a metaphor for me of like, I'm not doing that. I'm stepping into like, no more of that. And the women that I work with get to have that same experience. You don't need to cut apart your dress anymore. It's time for you to step into that elegant, timeless, beautiful thing that makes you feel good, and own it.
that's awesome. Okay, well, I can say the thing that you blew me away with was, I've never thought about this. I know that your unconscious tries to keep you safe, but when you said it's always seeking resolution, that just like boom, because that's the part of myself that I have never understood, where even if someone's treated me badly, I want to fix it.
Mhm.
I want it to be okay. And then that's what causes you to go back in with like toxic people and try to talk to them when you know it's not going to work. So thank you. I don't know how that missed me.
But here's the thing, right? So we do all the things we're told to do, to learn, to grow, to expand, to try to figure out these things about ourselves. So we talk about it in therapy. We talk about it with our girlfriends. We journal. We read the books. We do the courses. We do all these things. But when we keep going at it in that same way and trying to like that conscious mind part of us, that's the logical, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to read something else. I'm going to tell them this. I'm going to do this. It's like gardening when you just pluck the top off the weed. It just grows right back, and you just keep going at it the same way. So instead, right, we have to tap into that other part. That's where the magic happens, in the unconscious mind, where we get to actually clear all this stuff and get rid of it. Because otherwise, you just end up having that temporary resolution and temporary peace where you feel like you're making progress. And then you're like, bam, back into all the old behaviors and the toxicity. And you're like, what the heck? And it just costs you, more time, more money, more energy, but most importantly, it costs, am I ever going to wake up in the morning and feel just the way that I want to feel? Am I ever going to not feel so just drawn and depleted and having to take care of everybody else? And then that constant thing of, are they mad at me? What did I do wrong? Like just that frenetic energy, because the truth is, you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So you got to tap into that other part and actually solve the problem.
Okay, so how do you work with you? Tell us where to find you.
So I'm on all the socials, right? At Riana Malia. My website is rianamalia.com, currently being fully redone because we were fully hacked. And
No.
it down. Yes, it was horrific.
I'm so sorry.
It was awful. But the domain is there. It just says, hey, we're realigning. But also, I would love to offer every single person listening. I've spent the last few months creating the LE, which is called the Extraordinary Love Index. And this is an assessment that every person in the world should take. And it's not just if you find yourself, because it answers the question, what's standing between you and extraordinary love? But this isn't just romantic love. This is self-love. This is in all of your relationships. And this is not a what Disney princess quiz are you? Like, this is a 40-question assessment. And I send you a 28-page personalized report with insights into all 9 areas of your attachment score and your trauma score and how you communicate and how you process. And it's going to give you so much insight and so many like, whoa, connecting the dots moments and like what you might be experiencing, how you can shift that right now in real time. So I'd love to offer everyone that, and we can put the link up, but it's simply, quiz.rianamalia.com.
I'll put it in the notes.
And yeah, and the work that I do is all private. It's all one-to-one because it's super, super intentional. So I have the Clear to Create Quantum Intensive, which is very fast, 8 to 10 weeks, and the Mastery Experience, which starts with that. So you get all of those fast results and that transformation. But then we spend the rest of the year actually co-creating your life and making sure that you achieve all of these things and reverse engineering goals and doing all that stuff. And then I do a magical VIP experience for the woman who wants to really step into claiming and owning. And it's 2 nights and 3 days with me somewhere really magical and deep transformation and bougie luxury pampering of the things for you specifically that make you feel held and seen and loved. Yes. So it's been a pleasure.
Very cool. Thank you so much. We're just going to go think a little bit about the constantly trying to fix and resolve things. You've changed my, appreciate it. Thank you so much, Riana.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Hotflash Inc. was created and is hosted by Ann Marie McQueen, produced and edited by Sonia Mack. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider, read all labels, and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the products. Information received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem, i.e. menopause or anything else, or any healthcare questions, please promptly see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Ann Marie McQueen and any producers or editors, disclaim any responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of any information contained herein. Opinions of guests on this podcast are their own, and the podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about a guest's qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. This podcast is owned by Hotflash Inc. Media.